unpredictability of blood sugar levels becomes a significant hurdle. And the symptoms like brain fog, fatigue, poor sleep, which is leading to more fatigue, obviously, low libido, feeling moody and anxiety. And don't we know that these are common symptoms that we can feel when our blood sugar it's basically on a roller coaster, right? We know those ups and downs, and we know how it impacts how we feel and our mood and our energy. So can we imagine when our hormones are thrown into that mix, suddenly all these things that we have to manage with just insulin and lifestyle are suddenly just exasperated. They're exaggerated, they're magnified. When hormones are dropping, our sugar fluctuations are just compounded, right? And making management even more challenging. Welcome to the Type 1 and Midlife podcast. My name is Melissa Slemp, a certified nutritional health coach and the founder and CEO of Abundant Health with Melissa, where I help women with type 1 diabetes to feel more empowered and live their best life despite their diagnosis. Each week, I will bring conversations and strategies from guest experts and my experience living with type 1 for over 40 years now. So if you're a woman ready to redefine how diabetes can look and feel for you, then the Type 1 and Midlife podcast is the show for you. Nothing you hear on this Type 1 and Midlife podcast should be a substitute for professional medical advice. Please always consult your doctor before changing your diet, insulin dosages, or healthcare plan. Hello and welcome to today's episode. I am excited to bring a topic that is close and near and dear to my own experience and with and alongside many women that I am meeting and coaching. And this is what I'm specializing in as a diabetes health coach. And that's why I'm here. So today we're going to look at perimenopause and its impact on blood sugar, particularly and especially for those of us managing type 1. And this episode, I'm going to specifically be talking into insulin-dependent diabetes. But it is amazing. I am also meeting and coaching many women who, again, in this midlife stage of life, who are experiencing insulin resistance and their blood sugar, A1C, insulin levels, and all those things are starting to climb. So I'm also helping them, and they are in this same stage. So their hormones are dropping, and it's a very common, all these things kind of work together, unfortunately. But, that what we're going to talk about today is just understanding why and expecting what will occur. And again, it's going to be slightly different for all of us, but information is powerful. And that is what I get to do when I come in here and speak with you and to talk with guests and to bring these topics to you. So today, are you curious about perimenopause? Maybe more so lately. And if you've been tuned in here to the show, you know that we do talk about this stage of life and all the things that we're facing living with diabetes, insulin sensitivity, our weight, our muscle, maintaining that muscle, a balanced diet, quality sleep, all the things we need to do, but how it gets exaggerated and even more so important as we age with diabetes. So, and many women are unsure. You may be experiencing some of the things that I'm going to talk about today and not necessarily relating it to your hormones, which is understood because we can get confused too, can't we? When a lot of the things I'll be mentioning today can also be signs of our blood sugar, the highs and the lows and, that roller coaster that we can have on some days. So they can point to these same symptoms. So it's no wonder we're confused, right? So today, I want to talk about this hormonal stage how long it lasts, what it means for transitioning into menopause. So menopause is actually, this is funny. Menopause is really one day. Once you've hit that 1 year mark without a menstrual cycle, that is where you go from that pre-stage into menopause. And then once you are that year and 1 day officially, you are now post-menopause. So that makes sense, right? So menopause is kind of a general term, but it's really this in between stage and that kind of gearing up stage, which is the peri or pre-menopausal stage that we spend the most time in. And that's what we're going to really focus in on today. And how do you know if you're in it, right? Gosh, what a question. Yes. So hopefully today this is going to help make this question a lot more simpler and clearer for you. So let's look at the definition. What is the true definition to help clarify this? So, and this is per the Mayo Clinic. This is a direct quote from their clinical resources, which I look to a lot. My daughter's a nurse at Mayo Clinic. I'm a little biased, but I do really respect their data and all of their information. So this is what they term it as. So perimenopause refers to the transitional phase before menopause, like I was just saying, when a woman's body begins to naturally transition toward the end of her reproductive years. So, and during perimenopause, hormone levels, particularly estrogen and progesterone, fluctuate irregularly, leading to various symptoms such as, so these are the symptoms that Mayo Clinic lists. And did you know that there's up to 34 symptoms? That's kind of an odd number, but somehow they tally that up to 34 symptoms, which I think is interesting. And there might be more than this, but as they have listed here, these symptoms can be irregular menstrual cycles, hot flashes, mood swings, weight gain, insulin resistance, sleep disturbances, and changes in libido. And perimenopause typically begins in a woman's 40s, but can start earlier or later, and it can last for several years before menopause officially occurs. So that is the end of that quote from Mayo Clinic again. And I'm all about understanding what we're talking about before we dive in with all these ideas and theories and, lifestyle suggestions and all. That's really important to understand where you are so that you know how to take that step forward, right? I want to share a personal story. This was me back in 2018. So that was 6 years ago? I was 50. It was the spring of 2018. And I went to a yoga retreat in Costa Rica. That was my first time there. Went alongside, I went with some ladies here in town. And there was a lot going on with that trip. Not only was I traveling to a country that I had never been to before, and you know how traveling can be anyway, just a little stressful, am I packing the right things, what to expect with the temperature and the conditions and the sleeping conditions and the arrangements and all that. So that was obviously something I had to prepare for. So, I still remember how I felt during that week. And obviously these feelings started prior to leaving for the retreat. It didn't happen when I got on the plane to go, but I didn't recognize my body. I was experiencing, obviously my blood sugar was starting to just not be as predictable as it used to be. I've always been very routine with, my eating and my exercise and my sleep. And that's something I really, really, pride myself on, is to be consistent with the things that I can control as much as we can, right? But I was needing more insulin. I felt bloated, and that's a funny thing, but I just felt like I was carrying a lot of water weight. And again, not something I was used to, not a feeling I was used to. And it was a great trip, great memories, some amazing yoga that we did out on, was actually in a kind of a jungle setting in Costa Rica. So it was quite the adventure. But I just remember just not feeling confident with with the way how I was feeling and my body. And we were fed some delicious food. So we had some great food. So I didn't feel like I was quite in control of what I was being, what they were serving us. So I think that might have been part of the anxiety around it. And again, just trying to measure my insulin with what I was eating and all that. But I just remember my body image, again, this was 6 years ago at the age of 50, I just didn't feel the same. And I think that was my overall take. So, uh, and I remember coming home and I knew I needed to get tested. This was something, and I had some friends that were also kind of going through the same stage. And it became a conversation. Again, this was among friends and girlfriends and other women. It wasn't necessarily something I felt confident about yet, at least not yet, about having this conversation with my doctor. So I didn't know how to even approach it. I eventually did. And I did eventually really start to look closer and it's funny because I actually did some training on hormone health. So part of my education as a coach, not only a certified holistic coach that really concentrates and focuses on all those primary foods that really impact how we feel and how our body's functioning, but I went a step further and I spent another year studying hormone health. And the main reason I did that was obviously diabetes is a hormone, or insulin is a hormone, and diabetes is an endocrine system that is impacted by a lot of different hormones. But I didn't realize that this was obviously some schooling that I was going to be using very soon and really kind of applying to my own life, because it's so easy to kind of feel outside of our own body and our own experience when we're studying things and learning, or maybe hearing other women talking about their life with menopause or what they're feeling through this. We can easily feel kind of separated from it, or say, well, I'm not there yet. I don't quite get it or understand it. So I'm not going to really pay attention to it right now. But I was quickly paying attention because it was speaking to me. But I was so thankful to get this training. So I had a lot of resources that I could stop and go back and study some more, and to really unpack all these layers. And then fast forward, obviously this is what I'm doing now. And I continue to learn from my clients too, because everybody's story is different. Everybody's transition is different. And I continue to learn and apply it when I'm working with other ladies. Again, most women that are living with type 1 diabetes and going through these hormonal stages is who I am helping right now. And I would be happy to meet you. And if you have a story or questions, please reach out, and I'll be sure to share more about that here, or you can look in the show notes as well. I wanted to share something else. There's an article I read, and this is some feedback that women shared. This was a study by Liz McKay, and this was such an amazing study, just talking specifically about menopause with type 1 diabetes. And, us women, we don't get a whole lot of attention in the medical arena right now. These hormonal stages, more so in the reproductive years, even though I don't necessarily think it's quality care, it's just kind of it's coming from the textbooks, but it's not individual and it's not personal, which it really needs to be. But she highlights the challenges that we face, and some of the things that some of the women that shared in her study said, and this is a quote, the unpredictability of blood sugar levels becomes a significant hurdle. And the symptoms like brain fog, fatigue, poor sleep, which is leading to more fatigue, obviously, low libido, feeling moody and anxiety, And don't we know that these are common symptoms that we can feel when our blood sugar it's basically on a roller coaster, right? We know those ups and downs, and we know how it impacts how we feel and our mood and our energy. So can we imagine when our hormones are thrown into that mix, suddenly all these things that we have to manage with just insulin and lifestyle are suddenly just exasperated, they're exaggerated, they're magnified. When hormones are dropping, our sugar fluctuations are just compounded, right? And making management even more challenging. So, and that is why this has become my passion, because I've not only experienced it, I continue to work through it. I am in postmenopause now, but I have worked through the lifestyle, just tightening up some things. And that doesn't mean restriction, ladies. It just means being more aware, bringing in some things that are going to support us every day, whether that's supplements, whether that's more gentle exercise, whether that's really getting your sleep routine dialed in. All those things are going to support how our body is transitioning. And I wanted to revert back in episode 27. I had a chance to talk with Dr. Tabitha Barber here, and she shared specific tips on getting hormone levels tested and how to have this conversation with your doctor. It was a powerful conversation I had with her. So if you have a chance, when you get done listening here today, go back into the library, podcast episode number 27 with Dr. Tabitha. And she mentioned too, and this is something that you can easily find if you do some digging, or if you get with me and we can further this conversation, is the FSH levels. So this is our follicle stimulating hormone. And that is a very significant test, that because a lot of doctors are really going to push back. Many doctors, OBGYNs, they're going to say, well, tests aren't necessary. I don't, and generally speaking, they don't really know how to test, how to interpret the test, or what to do with the test data. So I think they avoid it just based on that. And that is something that Dr. Tabitha definitely talked into as well. But the FSH it's a very standard test. It's easily done. It's not an extra cost to your blood work. But it's a good baseline, because as those levels are rising, and along with all the other symptoms that you might be feeling, this is really going to give you a better, brighter picture, a more clearer picture of what stage of hormonal changes you are in. So again, as those FSH levels are rising, you are getting closer to menopause. So they want your levels. I believe the levels are like from 5 to 15 in reproductive years. So you will see, as you're hitting the perimenopause levels, again, this can happen at any age level, ladies, but getting this foundational baseline test is going to let you know where you are now. And then you can get it done maybe every 6 months, annually, just to see how you are gradually getting closer to that hormonal stage. So once you start hitting, your levels are in the 20s and the 30s, and then the 40s and the 50s, obviously, you are obviously going to, along with the other symptoms, you're going to know, yes, for sure, this is where I'm at. Perimenopause. Again, this stage can last for so long. So I'm a big believer in tests, getting these tests done, knowing where you are, and have a framework to work that around. And that is something I work with my clients on too, is just looking closer at what you're doing now, what stage you might be in, what are these symptoms that you're feeling and want to, to change, to nurture, and to just slowly, to make this transition a lot smoother. And another thing that I talk a lot about, and I really encourage, is hormone replacement therapy. And Dr. Tabitha, again, in episode 27, she really dove into this as well. So I really encourage you to check that episode out. I thought I would never get on hormone replacement. I thought, oh, well, I'm going to try to do it the natural way, and there's no need for that. But little did I know how much estrogen impacts all the different systems in the body. It is a receptor So this is a hormone that impacts so much. So when we can make this decision and say, yes, this is something that I want to live, and to nurture my whole body, my whole system, not only these symptoms we're talking about, but all the different symptoms that are impacting blood sugar, that are impacting insulin sensitivity. It's really a no-brainer. So I really encourage you, again, if you can get your levels tested, have this conversation with your doctor and take it from there. But again, learn, and ask questions and see if this is going to be a good option for you. And I wanted to leave with some takeaways. These are a few things to consider if perimenopause, or if you've reached that 1 year mark, or you are without a menstrual cycle, and or if you've had your levels tested, and you know that your FSH is higher, and all seems to add up that this is a stage that you are currently in now. So these are some things to consider. I'm all about action steps and some things for you to walk away with today. So consider your usual diabetes management. This is the first one, and your routine. And if things that you've always done are no longer enough, things are just not adding up. 2 + 2 is not equal 4. And this is not just to say that, you have those days where you're suddenly, like your insulin is just, there's a lot of variables with this, obviously. But if you're seeing a pattern where you are just more and more insulin resistance, and it doesn't seem to make logical sense, this is a good clue. So pay attention to that. Maybe, looking closer at your insulin pump reports. I'm on the InPen, which has got some great reporting on there. So again, following your trends, paying attention to this, and to not just, I think it's important too, when we can tie things back to a logical reason. It sure takes the stress off. It doesn't make it easier, but it makes it simpler, and it makes it more decisive when we can say, okay, this is probably what's going on. This is probably why I need more insulin. There is a hormonal reason why this is happening. So go ahead and take those steps for yourself, because it's important to understand the whys. And number 2 is, this can be, this is a frustrating, stressful, and situation, but to not feel hopeless during this time, to know that there are some solutions, and there are some things that you can refer to and lean on. And perimenopause can lead to unpredictable blood sugar levels, as I mentioned, and the need for more insulin, the carb cravings, the weight gain as your estrogen levels are continuing to fall. And, that's compounded with this insulin resistance. Like I was just saying, your body will probably need some more insulin. As we know, insulin is a fat storing hormone. So again, it's all making sense once you know how it's all working in your body. So yeah, just paying attention to all of these changes. And note too that menopausal symptoms can mimic signs of hypoglycemia, which is low blood sugar, especially at night. So if you're waking up with, the hot flashes, the night sweats, as we call it, or just having a hard time going to sleep and staying asleep, those can all be confused with low blood sugar. So again, paying attention to your trend reports and what those trends tend to be, especially at night, and just trying to kind of go through that. And again, if your blood sugar is fine all night long, but you're waking up hot and irritable, and having a hard time falling asleep, staying asleep, then chances are there are some things going on with your estrogen, because low estrogen is a contributor to this. And just paying attention to being mindful of the impact that menopause is going to have on your blood sugar, make us feel more anxious, stress, and maybe just a little fearful, because we're not quite sure how our day is going to look and feel based on all that's going on with our body and our blood sugar fluctuations. So just be in tune with how you're feeling. Stay in touch with community, and And the final thing I wanted to leave you away with, don't be afraid to seek support. I have a lot of resources on my website. Again, abundanthealthwithmelissa.com. So visit there, some free resources. You can stay in touch with me. You can, you can download these free resources and you can stay on my newsletter list every week. I send out some information and some really helpful tips, recipes, resources, and all of that. And my website also has some amazing recipes, some blood sugar balancing recipes. Again, there's a lot of things that you can tap into right now and to stay connected with my community as well. Real important. And I am eager to explore perimenopause further with you, or, depending on where you are. I hope this conversation and these tips I shared just opened up this these ideas of where you are now, or where you soon will be, or maybe you're post-menopause right now. Maybe you are in the stage where you recognize what I've spoken about. You may or may be on hormone replacement therapy. Maybe this is something you're considering, but you don't know enough about it, so you've avoided it. All this is about empowering you. So please reach out. There's a couple ways you can get in with my community. Well, and again, with myself and some other women just like you, you can join our Type 1 and Midlife group on the Honey Health Diabetes app. That's a free community off social media where you can jump in, watch some little tidbit videos on certain points and topics that you can learn, some just kind of bite-sized nuggets that you can take away from. And you can find the link right here in the show notes to download that free app and join us. And now, if you need more information or want to discuss this topic further, because we're all at a different stage, we're all in a different kind of time with deciding on what and how perimenopause through postmenopause is affecting you, reach out and book a free consult with me. Again, you can visit my website, abundanthealthwithmelissa.com, and just click the Get Started right there up there in the menu to schedule a time. And again, I work with clients both in person and virtually, so we can just jump on a phone call or a video call. And I would love a chance to talk further with you. So I hope this topic empowered you today. And that is my goal. And please share this episode with any other woman who may benefit from this same support. And be sure to rate and review our show. We are eagerly trying to reach more women in midlife and beyond, transition, and just to grow and age with type 1 diabetes with a lot more hope and support, and know that we can do this together. So thank you for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed this episode and it was exactly what you needed to learn and hear today. And I'll see you back in here next week. Thank you for listening to the Type 1 and Midlife podcast. Head over to iTunes to subscribe, rate, and leave a review. It's very much appreciated. Thank you. And be sure to check us out at abundanthealthwithmelissa.com for our free resources. See you next week.